The exception requests 5x application comes with a number of data-driven events already configured and can be used as a valuable learning tool. While this diagram and the actions called out are not a comprehensive view of everything built into the exception requests application, it does give some good examples of how data-driven events can be used. Note that the newer exception requests application makes use of the advanced workflow feature. To see the pre-advanced workflow version of the application, open the 5x notated application. The Sriracha platform supports the ability to not only capture and report on data, but also to react dynamically to data conditions or values within the system. Data-driven events, which are configured on the Events tab of the Manage Applications page, provide two types of conditional actions. The ability to change certain parameters of the user interface based on specific field values. The ability to generate email notifications based on date information. An event is made up of two parts, a rule and an action. A single rule can be associated with any number of actions. Actions are stored in an action library and can be used by any number of rules. Rules are owned by the application and are not available to other applications. In leveled applications, rules are not available to other levels. Apply conditional layout. Use this action type to dynamically display fields or sections of fields within a record. You can also change the properties of specific fields, such as privacy settings. Filter values list items. Use this action type to dynamically reset the items available in a values list field. You can set rules to limit the items available for selection, or you can configure the selection of a value in one field to trigger a change to the value selected in another field. Generate notification. Use this action type to generate emails to selected users each time a record is added or updated within the application, or to send reminder emails to specific users based on date values within records. Set date. Use this action type to dynamically change the date displayed in a date field. Set values list selection. Use this action type to automatically set a specific value within a values list field. This action changes the default value in a field, and this value can be edited by the user. To configure data-driven events, go to the Manage Applications page for the application you want to configure. From there, click on the Layout tab, and look for the Rules and Actions sub-tabs. A core application that comes with most Sriracha installations is the Exception Requests application, which is part of the Issue Management solution. Exception Requests uses a number of data-driven events in order to manage a dynamic workflow. A data-driven event is a rule with an associated action or actions. You can link any number of actions to a rule, and you can link any number of rules to a single action. A rule is a set of one or more data conditions that must be met in order for the rule to evaluate to true. Rules are evaluated as the user changes field values in a record. Rules are owned by the application and are not available to other applications. Rules are executed as part of a rules session. A rules session is a single, uninterrupted pass of evaluating rules in a specified order and executing associated actions for any satisfied rules. Rules sessions are invoked when a user saves or applies a record and when the user changes field values. When a field used as part of a rule criteria changes, the system evaluates all the rules for the application. A rule is a set of one or more data conditions or values that must be met for the rule to evaluate to true. Rules are owned by the application and are not available to other applications. Each rule can be linked to one or more actions. Rules can be copied and then edited to make similar rules. Rules can be based on field types that allow for a user selection, for example, a values list field, or data entry, for example, a text field. To create a rule under the Manage Applications page, click the Events tab, and select the Rules tab. From this location, click Add New. Actions are predefined operations that are executed when linked to rules. They are only executed when linked to a rule that has been evaluated to true. Actions can be used with any number of rules. A reminder of the action types available are listed here. The Apply Conditional Layout action modifies the elements that display within a record and adjusts the properties of specific fields. Using this action, you can determine which sections, fields, custom interface objects and text box objects are displayed, override the read/write permissions for fields, set the required field status for fields, attach specific users, groups and fields to the actions so that the presentation can be different to different users. The Apply Conditional Layout action does not increase a user's access privileges, but it can restrict them. If a field is set to display and the user does not have read privileges to it, the field is still hidden from the user. But if a user has full access privileges to a field that is set to read only using the Apply Conditional Layout action, the user cannot modify the field. Hiding a field with an Apply Conditional Layout action is a cosmetic operation. It does not change the permissions to a field. Users will still be able to search hidden fields, and data feeds and APIs can access the fields. If a field with a base setting of required is not visible to the user cannot save the record. To solve this, you must either modify the application to display the required field to the user or change the field settings so that it is no longer required. There may be times when conflicting Apply Conditional Layout actions have been created. This slide illustrates the order that is followed for resolving such conflicts. Section-level actions take precedence over field-level actions. Read-only section-level actions are the highest priority. A filter values list action limits the items available in a values list field. For example, if a values list field contains these values by default, red, green, yellow, orange and blue, you can create a filter values list action that excludes orange and blue and displays only the red, green and yellow values. A set values list selection action selects one or more specific values within a values list field. This action changes the default value in the field. This value can be edited by the user if needed. For example, if a values list field has the options yes, no and n/a, you can create a set values list selection action to automatically set the value in the field to yes. A calculated field cannot be the target of filter or set values list actions. The generate notification action delivers alert emails to select users when a record is added or updated. It can also send reminder emails based on date values. Recipients cannot opt out of receiving these emails. If you want to set up a notification that users can elect to unsubscribe, use the subscription notifications feature instead. Creating a generate notification action within an application enables you to send emails when a record is added or updated in the application or when a target date value is reached. Unlike the set values list items and conditional layout actions that can evaluate several different field types, the generate email event can evaluate only date, first published date or last updated date fields. Generate notification actions enable you to create notification templates based on new/updated records, triggering emails to selected users each time a record is added or updated within the application. You can also configure notification templates based on a frequency, such as daily, weekly, monthly or quarterly. In addition, you can trigger emails based on a date value, such as the number of days remaining before a given date. For example, you might create a generate notification action to send a reminder email 15 days before the date selected in a record's due date field to the user selected in the Records Project Manager field. A set date action changes the value displayed in a date field. You can set the value to the current date, to a number of days from the current date, to a specific date, or set the field to blank. If the date field is configured to include date and time, you can set the date, time and time zone. For example, you could combine a rule and an action that would populate the date in an approval date field based on a user's selection in a status field. If a user selects approved in the status field, the approval date field would automatically be populated with the current date. If a user selects in process in the status field, the approval date field would remain unpopulated. You cannot link more than one set date action for the same date field in the same rule. If a rule set has multiple set date actions for the same date field, only the first set date action is executed. Rules are evaluated sequentially according to the priority they are assigned. Rule order determines the specific order in which the applicable actions of each rule are executed. Administrators can use rule order to dynamically or conditionally control when actions are executed based on a business process. When building data-driven events, take note of these points. The first step in determining what might be wrong with your events is to verify the events are correctly configured from a logical standpoint. What fields are being evaluated in the rule? Is the correct action linked to the rule? Are the rules and actions set to active? Because events will fire as a user changes data in a record, you should consider whether any field being evaluated by a rule is a calculated field. While it is possible to use a calculated field in rule evaluation, this may not lead to optimal results. Also, verify that the rule field is visible on the application layout. If the user cannot interact with the field, he cannot change the field to meet the rule's criteria, and therefore cannot trigger the action. Verify the order of events does not create an unwanted loop of actions. If field A is used in a rule that is linked to an action that changes the value in field A, your users will be caught in an unwanted loop. Isolate the problem by deactivating your rules one at a time. Once you have identified the problematic rule or action, you can focus your troubleshooting appropriately. Use the Event Analyzer. This is a dialog box that shows a real-time summary of the rules and actions in an application and how the conditions are evaluated. To open the Event Analyzer, open a record for editing within the application you want to troubleshoot. Hold down the Ctrl and Alt keys on your keyboard, and left-click anywhere within the body of the record. The Event Analyzer window will open. Click the Enable button to begin monitoring activity. Interact with the record such that a data-driven event condition is met. The Event Analyzer window will be populated with a listing of triggered conditions, evaluations and actions completed. This data may help you narrow in on any misconfigured rules or actions.